the regulations that are being put on them, environmental regulations, are coming out of the UN. I'll just read here from the World Economic Forum's Food Action Alliance, quote, "The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development informs the ambitions of the Food Action Alliance, to meet the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals," end quote. So the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030, as many of our readers will know, came out of the 1992 Rio Earth Summit of the United Nations. It was originally called Agenda 21, then it was updated to be called Agenda 2030, and it is a totalitarian program for regulating everything on the planet, all human activity, and all of our entire biosphere and atmosphere. And so if you control all of that, you have more power than any dictator, any totalitarian megalomaniac in history. And that is what they're after. And we've exposed that repeatedly in the New American Magazine. And so what's happening now in Holland was then put in place by the EU, the European Union, under something they call Natura 2000. And that was a plan they adopted in the year 2000, 22 years ago, and it's increasingly putting more and more regulations on everything coming down from the United Nations.
Right, so, and these regulations will make it impossible to farm or to raise cattle, for instance.
Right, and so many of the farmers who have been interviewed, I haven't in Holland, I haven't interviewed any of them yet, but I'm reading interviews and watching interviews on Dutch television and other media. They're saying, I'm going to have to, according to these regulations, I have to get rid of 95% of my cattle herd or sheep herd, or and if they do, I can't stay in business. It's going to drive a lot of them out of business, and of course, then that concentrates, cartelizes the agriculture into more and more mega agribusiness.
Well, I think any school child would know that if you were to get rid of, let's say, 95% of the livestock, you're getting rid of 95% of the food supply from that livestock.
Absolutely.
And so what are people going to eat? I mean, what...
At a time when food prices are skyrocketing and food availability is getting more and more scarce, one has to be utterly foolish or utterly evil to now push for more and more food restrictions. And, of course, many of the farmers have pointed out this fits right in with the World Economic Forum and what Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum is many of the world's richest people, like Bill Gates of Microsoft, of George Soros, BlackRock's CEO Larry Flink, etc. All of these guys flock to Davos. Then they go out and put out these draconian Chinese Communist Party style programs. And it's not an exaggeration to point to their affinity for the Beijing regime, for the Chinese Communist Party. The CCP leaders regularly come to Davos. They have held Davos programs in communist China. And many of these big CEOs, the big bank and corporate CEOs, big pharma, etc., are joined at the hip with the Chinese Communist Party. They've invested billions of dollars there and brought billions of dollars of Chinese Communist Party money here. And so they are all on board with moving us more and more into a Chinese communist style system, a regime. And in fact, George Soros said several years ago that China is going to own the new world order, and that was a good thing. And he and Warren Buffett and others like that have invested heavily in China.
Right. And of course, the United States would be